Alright, I finally got around to editing part 2 of Mad Max number 5. I apologize for the long wait in getting this video out. My only excuse is procrastination. So, when we last left off, I had just glued the spikes on the front of the car. I now want to shift to the Matchbox body. If you look at this body, you may notice that it sort of takes on a skull look. I'm going to use this to my advantage and work to make the body look more like a skull. So using a file on the front, I'm going to start filing in some teeth. The hole in the hood will make the skull's nose, so I'll go ahead and use another round file to also make that take on a more skull-like look. Above the windows or eyes, I'm going to use a cone bit on my Dremel tool to eat away at the edges and put in large gashes. This will help break up the lines that the windows make and give the eyes a more ominous look. Alright, so here's what it looks like after all the filing and dremeling. I'm not going for a perfect skull, as that would look really strange. Instead, I'm going for a vehicle that looks like the owner modified it to look like a skull. In other words, the vehicle aspects are more important than the skull aspects. The next step is to paint the front of the body with a white primer. This is done with an airbrush. Once the paint is dried, we can then go over the body with a wash. The wash will give a dirty look and add shading to the face of the skull. Since I have the wash out, I'll go ahead and paint the rest of the body with the wash and then set it aside to dry. Once everything is dry, I'll clear coat with matte clear coat and then paint in the teeth using a white enamel paint. Now you may have noticed that our skull has no lower jaw at the moment. To remedy this, I'll move to the front of the roadster and use the Dremel with the cone bit to cut in bottom teeth. So here you can sort of see what I'm going for when the two parts are put together. So now I'm going to use the painting process I used on the upper part on the lower jaw. Next I'm going to add a tongue to the skull. This is from a water transfer tattoo, and you can watch one of my older videos if you're interested on how this process is done. Once everything is dry, I'll glue in the engine to the roadster with superglue. And then I'll glue the top to the roadster with the same glue. Once the glue sets up, I'll go over the remaining parts with the wash that I used earlier. This will give the power plant in the back a more shaded look to match up with the rest of the car. While that dries, I will now focus once again on the front of the car. Instead of using the wash here, I'm going to use the other method and airbrush everything in black primer and then wipe it off with my fingers before the paint dries. This gives pretty much the same results as the wash, just a whole lot faster. Next up, I'd like to add some rust effects to the bar and spikes. I'm going to start with a very dark rust. I realize there's a certain irony of fake rusting a piece of metal that itself can rust, but with all the glue on it, I doubt the rust would come out looking right if I just allowed it to rust on its own. Once I have the dark rust applied, I then go over with a lighter orange colored rust. This color represents a more fresh looking rust compared to the dark. Okay, so at this point I put the car back together to give you an idea of where I'm at. In part 3, I will finish off the painting, and I plan on adding a red light inside the cab of the car to give the skull red eyes. I promise part 3 will not take as long as this part, so be on the lookout. Anyway, I hope you like where this is headed. Please let me know below if you have any suggestions for this model. Since the model is not actually finished at this point, suggestions can be incorporated into the final look. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.